What's up, everyone? Thank you for tuning in back into my channel. My name is Buddy Steele, and this is Plug Talk. I am thrilled to debut this to you guys. I've been working on it for a minute, and I'm going to unveil the wealthiest people of all time. That's right, you got it. They adjust it by inflation, obviously, okay? And then they look at any given person's wealth and account that how much they contribute to the total annual GDP. Right? So it's going to be a very small percentage, but a percentage nonetheless. And that's how they were able to rank the wealthiest people of all time in a bunch of different generation and eras. And I have that list for you right now. It's time to plug in. Let's get after it. Coming in at number 9 on the wealthiest people of all time is William Henry Vanderbilt. He lived from 1821 until 1885. His estimated net worth adjusted is anywhere from $52 billion to $239 billion. He was an American businessman and philanthropist. He is known more widely as being the son of Cornelius Vanderbilt, who is the patriarch of the Vanderbilt dynasty. So they made their fortune in the railroad and shipping industry, more specifically the New York Central Railroad. After Cornelius passed on, William inherited his fortune, and it was $100 million at that time. He had doubled his father's inheritance within the 10 years preceding his death. Walking in his father's footsteps, he had a big hand in philanthropy as well. He endowed Vanderbilt University, YMCA, the Metropolitan Opera, and had dispersed money all over the medical field to continue scientific research. William Henry Vanderbilt is one of the pillars of America that helped make New York what it is today, a worldwide powerhouse. So coming in at number 8 on the wealthiest people of all time is Stephen Gerrard. He lived from 1750 to 1831. His estimated net worth is anywhere from $105 billion to $120 billion. Stephen Gerrard was a French-born American banker. He personally saved the U.S. government from financial collapse during the War of 1812 by buying government bonds and helping fund their military campaigns. Early on, Gerrard had accumulated his wealth in the merchant industry. He would facilitate the shipment of sugar and coffee from the West Indies to the United States and then ship other goods from the U.S. back to the West Indies. When the first Bank of the United States was founded in 1791, Gerrard was the largest investor. And 20 years later, when Congress shut the bank down, Gerrard purchased the assets and opened up Gerrard Bank. And that's what led to him being in the position where he could literally bail out the government by buying those bonds. There is no telling what would have happened to America if Stephen Gerrard wasn't in the position to help fund all of the campaigns of the War of 1812, but we wouldn't have been set off as pretty as we are right now. Coming in at number 7 on the wealthiest people of all time, Cornelius Vanderbilt. He lived from 1794 to 1877. His estimated net worth was anywhere from $105 billion to $205 billion. As I said, he was the patriarch of the Vanderbilt dynasty and the father of William Henry Vanderbilt. So Cornelius worked his way up in the inland water trade and invested rapidly in the growing railroad industry. Cornelius was a big catalyst for the westward growth by vastly expanding and improving the nation's transportation infrastructure and really contributing to the transformation of the whole geography of the U.S. And of course, there were quite a few people back then that were top dogs in the railroad industry, but what set Cornelius apart was his innovation and willingness to embrace new technologies. He really set the stage and created the corporate economy that would define America in the 21st century. Coming in at number 6 on the wealthiest people of all time is John Jacob Astor. So he lived from 1763 to 1848. His estimated net worth was anywhere from $120 billion to $138 billion. So Jacob Astor was an American businessman, merchant, opium smuggler, fur trader, and investor. He was America's first multi-millionaire. Astor mainly made his fortune in the fur trade monopoly and invested in real estate in and around New York. He had that farsightedness to be able to see what New York could become, and so he invested all around the Manhattan area and all along the coastal lines. He really is one of the main reasons for the boom of New York. Astor himself created a dynasty with the Astors, and his name is sometimes confused with the other John Jacob Astor, who is actually the fourth, his great-great-grandson, who actually died in the sinking of the Titanic. Astor created what is believed to be America's first family trust. He left $20 million, which is about $100 billion in today's dollars, to his son. And the 125 parcels of land that he owned remained in that trust. And so they were actually known as the landlords of New York for that reason. John Jacob Astor died the wealthiest person in the United States. Coming in at number 5 on the wealthiest people of all time is Henry Ford. He lived from 1863 until 1947. His estimated net worth adjusted is anywhere from $188 billion to $199 billion. We all know Henry Ford. He was the American automotive engineer, entrepreneur, and founder of the Ford Motor Company. He is known for designing the Model T Ford using mass production assembly lines, which was his own innovation. This enabled rapid production and the ability to lower the base price of those trucks and to make them much more affordable for the middle class. They went from producing 18,000 cars in 1909 to over 1 million by 1920, only 11 years later. Despite lowering the vehicle's prices and increasing the workers' salary to help decrease turnover, the company was still massively profitable, and so in turn was Henry Ford. Henry Ford was one of the most ingenious and innovative business minds America has ever seen. With his innovative designs in the assembly lines and the integrated technology with his vehicles, he really changed the landscape of transportation. It wasn't long before you saw vehicles all over and everywhere. Henry Ford, a name not soon to be forgotten. Coming in at number 4 on the wealthiest people of all time is Osman Ali Khan, Asaf Jah VII. He lived from 1886 until 1967. His estimated net worth was around $210 billion. He was the last Nizam of the Hyderabad state in the British-governed India, so really he was a monarch of that Hyderabad state. He was more of a self-autonomous monarch, so he had his own mint, he could print his own money, and he also had his own private treasury, which was said to have held 100 million in gold and silver bullion, and a further 400 million in jewels. And we're talking in 2008 numbers. The major source for the wealth of Ali Khan was from the Golconda mines, which was the only supplier of diamonds in the world at the time. It is said that the Jacob diamond he possessed, which he used as a paperweight, was worth $50 million in today's terms. Widely regarded as being the wealthiest person of his lifetime, Ali Khan is more known in the US for being on the cover of Time magazine in 1937. Ali Khan's inclusion on this list was a little bit debatable because of the autonomy he had in his monarch position, but it was his personal wealth and assets, so he comes in at number 4. Coming in at number 3 of the wealthiest people of all time is Andrew Carnegie. He lived from 1835 to 1919. His estimated net worth adjusted is around $310 billion. He was the founder of the Carnegie Steel Company, which was the extensive iron and steel operation in the US, and the largest one at that. Carnegie's fortune accounted in his prime for 0.6 of the US annual GDP. In 1901, he had sold that company for $480 million to J.P. Morgan, who then merged it into U.S. Steel. U.S. Steel was the first billion-dollar company in the world. In Carnegie's final years, his net worth was estimated at around $475 million, but by the time he had died in 1919, he had donated most of his wealth to charities and other philanthropic endeavors and had only $30 million left to his personal fortune. Carnegie really changed the way that the wealthy distributed their fortune by being a leading philanthropist. His 1889 article, The Gospel of Wealth, called on the rich to use their wealth to help improve society, which stimulated a wave of philanthropy. His generosity helped form numerous local libraries, we know Carnegie Hall, and helped fund numerous world peace, educational, and scientific research institutions. This guy was rich, rich, rich. Coming in at number 2 of the wealthiest people of all time is John D. Rockefeller. He lived from 1839 to 1937. He lived to 97 years old, by the way. His estimated net worth is at around $350 billion. Rockefeller became the first personal billionaire in 1916. He had amassed his fortune from the Standard Oil Company, which he was a founder, chairman, and major shareholder. He is considered the richest person in modern history, controlling 90% of all the oil in the U.S. at his peak. He was also a major influence in the railroad industry, which transported his oil all around the country. In 1911, when the Supreme Court ruled that Standard Oil must be dismantled for violations of federal antitrust laws, it was broken up into 34 separate entities, which included companies that would later become ExxonMobil, Chevron Corporation, and many others. Consequently, as the individual share doubled and tripled, Rockefeller became the world's first billionaire at that time with a fortune of nearly 2% of the U.S. annual GDP. That is mind-boggling. Rockefeller spent the last 40 years of his retirement founding different foundations to help facilitate targeted philanthropy efforts by other wealthy people. His donations pioneered the development of medical research and were instrumental in the near eradication of hookworm and yellow fever in the United States. He founded the University of Chicago and Rockefeller University and the General Education Board. Generations and generations of Rockefellers have continued to spread generosity, and their impact is still being felt today. This kind of wealth and this kind of accountability on the US GDP scale might be something that we will never see again in the United States. Coming in at number 1 on the wealthiest people of all time is Jacob Fuger. Jacob Fuger lived from 1459 to 1525. His estimated net worth adjusted is around $400 billion. Fuger was a German merchant, mining entrepreneur, and banker. He was born in Augsburg, Germany to a merchant family, but went on to expand their family's firm to a business operating all of Europe, which was about 3.9 million square miles at the time, a little bit bigger than the United States. He at one time had a near monopolistic hold on all the European copper market. The crazy anecdote about that monopoly was that the family business started out as a poor textile shop selling cloth. Fuger's grandfather had founded the business, but by the time Fuger took over at the age of 14, he had different plans. They quickly got into the mining of silver, gold, copper, then they got into banking and financing, even getting into trading spices and other luxury goods. Ultimately, they were the bankers for all the royal and elite in Europe, including the Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I. Savviness is what separated Fuger from the other wealthy families at the time. He had a keen and forward-thinking eye on how to borrow and reinvest. When Fuger died, he had no direct descendants, so he bequeathed the company to his nephews, leaving them with assets worth 2 million guilders, which has been estimated to be around $400 billion in 2016 terms. This is a kind of rich that, other than Fuger, we have never seen. Imagine having the equivalent of $400 billion at that time. It really is unfathomable. The guy probably could not run out of money if he tried. The family continues his legacies today, and the Fuger dynasty is still live and well in Germany. A lot of the buildings are still up to this day. His big mansion is still up to this day. 17 generations later, in World War II, there were family members still making money off of the businesses that Fuger had started. Totally astronomical to think about and impressive. So to recap my list of the wealthiest people of all time, number 9, William Vanderbilt. Number 8, Stephen Gerrard. Number 7, Cornelius Vanderbilt. Number 6, John Jacob Astor. Number 5, Henry Ford. Number 4, Osman Ali Khan VII. Number 3, Andrew Carnegie. Number 2, John D Rockefeller. And at number 1, Jacob Fuger. Alright guys, so there you have it. There is the wealthiest people of all time. If you ever get in the situation where you need some random fun fact trivia, or if you're just talking with your friends and they ask you who the wealthiest people of all time are, they might mention Warren Buffett or Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates. No. You now have that knowledge, guys, and you are welcome. If you enjoyed this video and got something out of it, please smash that like button for me, guys. I would really appreciate it. Also, subscribe to my channel. I post every Monday, Wednesday, Friday with a variety of different topics that eventually should suit you. And share this video as well if you know someone that might appreciate knowing this random, useless knowledge. Alright, guys, I hope you all have a great week. I love you all. I'll see you Wednesday. And deuces!